Hey, welcome everyone. Adam coming at you one more time with a Silent Yin class in our Silent Yin series. So, an hour-long Yin class, little to no talking, just really letting you get into the poses and letting you marinate there. So, we'll start in a wide child's pose. So, come to the back of the mat. Let's bring the toes together and bring the knees very wide. So, maybe a little bit wider than you normally do. It's okay if they hang off the mat. And then slowly let the arms start to reach forward. And because we're coming into this wide child's pose, starting us off, with the knees being so wide, your nose might be smushed on the ground. So instead of smushing the nose, let's bring our left ear to the ground and gaze to the right. And then set up here, take some time to find your breath. And as we move into this silent practice, my guidance will be getting you into poses, giving you some modifications, and then just letting you be. And I'll give you that halfway mark if your head's turned in one direction. You can look in the opposite direction just to get that even neck stretch. So I'll give you that. I'm going to take about the first 2 minutes or so here just to settle in looking in one direction. Now staying in your wide child's pose, just turning your gaze the opposite direction. So if you're looking to the left, look to the right. If you're looking to the right, look to the left. And take some time here to settle back in. Three more breaths. After your third breath, return your neck to neutral first. And then slowly start to come forward onto your bellies. Let's release that pressure into the hips. Come down, face first onto our bellies. Gaze to the right, arms down by the sides. And if you want, you can bend the knees and find a little windshield wiper of the legs. Start to release some of that lower back and any hip tension that might have been created there. All right, pause the swaying of the legs. Let those feet come back to the mat. And we'll set up for our Sphinx Pose, our second shape we'll take today. So bringing the elbows underneath the shoulders, arms extend out forward in front of you. Let the hips rest down onto the mat. Feet can be hip distance or more narrow. And then for your upper body, if you want, you can press into your elbows and kind of keep the head more lifted. If you want to find a little slouch into the shoulders, you can do that as well. So 5 minutes here. I'll give you last minute an opportunity to go into a seal pose, which is a little more of a intense variation of this Sphinx. And find your breath and settle in. All right, so coming into our last minute here, you can stay right where you're at in your Sphinx Pose. Or if you'd like to move into Seal Pose, turn your hands outward about 1 degree each, press into your palms and fingertips, and then slowly start to straighten your arms. If you want a little bit more, you can walk the hands back towards your torso, putting some more pressure into your lower back. Try to keep the chest pulling forward. Just a little over 30 seconds left. Last 2 breaths. And after your second exhale, slowly release chin and chest down to the mat. Gaze to your left. You can make a little pillow with the hands or release your arms by the side. And then freedom to bend the knees and windshield wipe the legs. Let's find about 30 seconds or so as a counter pose. And once your lower back's feeling good, let those feet come back to the ground. Hands come underneath the shoulders and press yourself up to a tabletop. Then from your tabletop, just gently rock the hips side to side, rock the shoulders side to side. I'm going to start to get into our hips a bit. I should say a bit more. All right, once you're feeling good with the lower back, we'll come into a sleeping swan pose. So it's a version of our half pigeon. So bring the right foot up, right knee behind the right wrist, right toes behind the left wrist. You can stay upright just like this. You can slide a pillow underneath this right hip if you need to. If you want to find a little more depth, you can start to come down onto your elbows or make your way down deeper into your chest. We're going to be here for a bit of time. So this is the start of our hip and meridian work. So slowly start to sink into the hips and find your breath. more breaths here. And after your third cycle of breath, slowly press yourself back up into your hands. Now, a couple ways you can get out of this: curling the back toes under, and you can find a three-legged dog, or you can come back into that hands and knees pose we just took. Either way, as soon as you find a little relief for that right hip, find some movement. You can open and close the hip if you're in your three-legged dog. If you are back in your quadrupeds, maybe just finding some roundness with the hips. A little bit of relief here, and then we're going to come right back into that same hip. This time we're coming into shoelace pose. So stepping your right knee between the thumbs, and slide your left knee in behind it. So we're going to try to stack the knees as best we can, and then sitting back onto our hips. Now, as you sit back onto your hips, the knees might separate. Listen to your body. Do what feels right. If you need to prop up your knees to find support, do that. The knees don't need to stack. That's just one of the goals that we're shooting for. Okay, so find the pose that fits you best, about the same amount of time. So really focus on pushing your right hip down to the ground. Now you can stay upright with the torso straight up and down, perpendicular to your mat, or if you'd like more pressure into your hips, gently start to walk the arms forward and let your torso rest on top of your front thigh. Settle in. Really push through that right hip as we start to find more openness in the hips. And find your breath. We're at that 3 breath mark here. 3 more deep, slow breaths. And slowly press yourself back up. Keep the knees stacked. Bring your left hand just to the outside of your left hip. Reach the right arm up. Really push into your right hip, and we'll find this little side body stretch. Just here for a couple breaths, not here for a while. And slowly bring your arms back up. Body back into center, and on the exhale, release the hands down to the ground. Rock back, uncross the legs. You can extend the legs out long in front of you. Shake out the legs, find some movement back into your hips. So we got one more little bit of journey on this right side. So we're going to come into a half lotus pose. So I'm going to spin to face you guys so you can see where I'm going here. So I'm going to take the right foot and bring the right foot into the left hip crease. All right, so we're taking this half lotus pose. Now, if this does not feel good, you could try to stack your knee on top of the left knee, just like a half, a half shoelace pose, kind of like what we just did. But if you want a little bit more intensity, you can grab that foot, bring it into the left hip crease for that half lotus pose. Okay, so again, another 4 minutes here. Sit up nice and tall on the inhale, and as we exhale, start to walk the arms forward, and just let the hands rest on either side of your left ankle, left calf, wherever the arms land, and slowly start to fold forward and find your breath. Three more breaths here. And after that third exhale, slowly walk the hands back up. Keep your legs where they're at. We're going to take a twist. The left hand comes behind us. Right hand comes to the outside of your left knee. Sit up nice and straight on the inhale. And on your exhale, gaze over your left shoulder. We'll find this gentle twist here just for about 3 more breaths. Big breath in. Big twist on the exhale. And then bring the gaze back to center. Untwist the torso. And then releasing your half scorpion or whatever pose you are in. Take a moment here, shake out the legs. We still got that other side to do. So it's our sequence we will be going through on the other side. All right, so once the knees feel good, the legs feel good, come back into your quadruped, back onto your hands and knees. Find a little movement back and forth. A little awakenness back into the hips, a little bit of mobility back there after those long holds. All right, then we'll set up for our second side. So starting with that half pigeon pose. Remember our entrance, you can come in from your 3-legged dog, or you can come in from your quadruped, hands and knees. We want to bring the left knee behind the left wrist, left toes behind the right wrist. Option to take this on your back, sliding a pillow underneath your left glute. All right, and take some time here. Stay upright for as long as you want to. Come down to your elbows or chest if and when you're ready. Strong breaths. And settle in. Last 3 breaths. And after that last exhale, hands come underneath the shoulders, slowly press yourself back up. And then our exit, you can come into 3-legged dog, or just bring that left knee back to right in line with the right knee into our quadrupeds. And if the knee is lifted, you can find the opening, closing of the hip, or if the knees are on the ground, find this little rounding back and forth. Just a little bit of mobility after we have those long static holds. It's good to get some movement back into the joints. All right, now we're setting up for our shoelace pose. So if you're in your 3-legged dog, bring the left knee between the thumbs. If you're in your quadruped, same kind of idea, just less momentum. Slide the right knee in behind it. We're going to slide the hips down onto the ground. This time our left hip is the one we want to put some focus into. It wants to dip bump, so push down through that left hip. Stack the knees as best as you can, even if they become separated. Support the knees if you need to with a pillow or a block. Grab my stopwatch here. All right, so you can stay upright. Remember, pushing through that left hip, keeping equal pressure. If you want more pressure into your hips, slowly start to walk the torso forward and let your chest rest on top of the front thigh. Then we start our time. Deep, long breaths. Find your concentration. just at that 3 breath mark. Just 3 deep, long breaths. And after that 3rd breath, slowly press yourself back up. Push through your left hip, right hand outside your right thigh, left arm lifts up and over. We find that gentle side body stretch here for just another 10 seconds or so. And keep the left shoulder drawing back, gaze underneath the left armpit. One more breath. And gently come back to center. Hands support you from behind, rock back, and then uncross the legs. Feel free to shake the legs out. Find that little bit of freedom here. Maybe windshield wipe the legs side to side. Just we have that one more pose. Taking that half lotus. So right leg's going to stay extended. The left foot is going to come to the inner right hip crease. And remember the variations, if you want to do something a little less intense, just place your left knee on top of the right knee for your half shoelace pose. All right. So sitting up nice and tall, press your left knee towards the ground if you're in this half lotus pose. Arms lift above the head on the inhale. And on your exhale, slowly let the body start to pour over this right leg. Find those deep rounds of breath. Last 3 breaths here. And after your last exhale, slowly walk the hands back up. Keep the legs where they're at. We'll take that twist. Right hand behind us, left hand to the outside of your right knee. Lengthen up on the inhale. And as you exhale, gaze over the right shoulder, gentle pressure into that right knee as we find our twist. Just a few breaths here. Try to keep the spine as long as you can while you gaze over that right shoulder. One more breath. All right, unravel the body forward first, then release this left leg. All right, get some length back into the knees, windshield wipe the legs side to side. You can even bend the knees and windshield wipe the legs, whatever feels right for you. All right, so our next pose is going to be fire log pose. So one more little jaunt into the hips on each side. This one's going to be a little more intense, not as long as a hold. So fire log, it's also known as box pose. So we're going to start with the left leg down, right ankle on your left knee, right knee on your left ankle, ideally. So ideally, we're going to try to stack the knees and ankles. Now again, just like our shoelace pose, sometimes our hips are a little more precarious than we want them to be. So if your knees are really high up into the air, if you need some support to close this gap, maybe a couch cushion, a pillow, or a block, or something in between the knees. But don't lose hope. You know, sometimes our hips are really tight. They just need a little time to open up. Sometimes they're anatomically built that way. All right. So find your best version of stacking your knees and ankles. Now, sitting upright, just like our shoelace pose, we'll put equal pressure into the hips, but walking the hands forward will add pressure into your hips. So if you want a little bit more, walk those arms forward. Now, those other poses, those other hip openers, we were in for about 4 minutes each. And this one, we're just about 3 minutes. And there are 2 sides. So settle in wherever you ended up. Find your breath. Three-breath mark. And after your third breath, slowly walk your hands back up. And once your body's upright, hands walk behind us. Let's uncross the legs. And then same as our previous poses, windshield wipe the legs side to side, or find legs long and shake them out. Okay, let's pause our movement. One more side for our fire log. So this time our right shin is going to be onto the ground. Left ankle on your right knee. Left knee on the right ankle. Remember our options, this time block or proper something underneath this left knee, right ankle area if you need it. If not, just try to stack the legs as best you can. We'll start with your straight spine. And then make the choice, stay upright, or if you want to walk the hands forward and let your torso come down on top of your front thigh. Just find your depth of pose, and then sink into your breath. Last 3 breaths. And after that last breath, slowly press your hands back into the ground, walk your body back upright. Once your torso is straight, uncross our legs. And then we'll find that counter pose, feet to the ground, windshield wipe the legs, or legs straight, shake it out. So a little bit of time here to find that release in the hips. And then once the hips feel okay, pause at the center. And then we'll come onto our backs and grab the shins. These start to rock all the way onto our backs. And then take some time here with the knees into the chest, rock side to side, massaging out that meridian line we've been working on our lower back area, kidneys. It's a nice little rounding side to side. And let's release the feet mat width apart. And we'll find a gentle release of the hips for a few breaths. Let the knees fall in towards center line with your feet nice and wide. So giving the outside hip sockets a little bit of a relief. 2 more deep breaths. All right, our last active pose, Supta Baddha Konasana, reclined butterfly. So bring the soles of the feet together. Let the knees open up wide. Nice diamond shape with the legs. You can have a hand on the belly, hand on the heart, whatever kind of variation of hand placement that feels good. Even arms down by the sides, palms facing up might be nice. And settle in here. It's our last pose before our final resting pose. Just another about 3 minutes here. And settle into your breath. And we'll do 3 more breaths here. And then we'll slowly start to release. Bring the knees back together into the center line. And draw the knees into the chest. And find another little rock side to side. Releasing that pressure on the outside of the hips. And maybe taking these last few moments to find some movement into your hips. A little rotation of the knees around the hip sockets. And then once you're ready, pause back at center. And then we'll release our legs long, arms out wide, moving into our final shape, our final Shavasana. And settle back into your breath. And let the toes open wide to the sides. Palms open towards the ceiling for receiving. your final Shavasana today. Thank you so much for joining us. Drink a lot of water today. Have a beautiful rest of your day. Namaste.